All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this iteration of the Academy of Animated Arts interview series. Today, we've got Francesco. Francesco is a lead lighting artist at Dreamworks and compositing, I should say, as well. I worked with Francesco at Blue Sky Studios. He's also worked at Pixar, and he has been a director on several of his own animated projects as well. Francesco is also demonstrating how it is to work from home currently while we're So Francesco, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great. So the one thing that we did interview you, I guess about a year ago now, but I did want to just to give a quick update to anyone who didn't get a chance to be on that one. Can you just give like a little update of how you got into the industry and how you became a lighting artist?
Well, a friend of mine suggested I apply to Pixar for an internship back when I was a junior in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think it was a good idea because my portfolio didn't really make any sense for Pixar, but I did it anyway. And then after a bunch of interviews, I got in. And then after I got in for the lighting internship, because actually they wanted me to tell them what I wanted to do for the internship because they would have been open for modeling, texturing, animation. But so I told them lighting because I thought that was my strongest suit. And then after I got in, it seemed silly to change paths altogether. So I stuck with lighting. And then I got an offer from Dreamworks out of college. And at the time they had this program where they scout colleges for people. And so they hired a handful of people. And I started at PDI Dreamworks that doesn't exist anymore, but this was up in San Francisco.
Yeah. And then you went to, because then you went from there to Blue Sky and then back to Dreamworks. Is that your path?
Yeah. I was Blue Sky for 5 years?
About that. Yeah. I can never remember. Yeah. I've been there long enough where it's like, I'll talk to someone and be like, you've been here for like, what, a year or two? They're like, Mike, it's been 8 years. I'm like, oh, never mind then.
Yeah.
So now you're back in LA. You're living the quarantine life. How's it going for you?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
We are very lucky that we have a tiny little garden outside. Actually, let me open it up. We have a tiny little garden so that it doesn't feel too claustrophobic to spend the day in here.
Ooh.
And the cat likes it. So the cat can run around.
Oh, nice.
This is the cat.
We believe you that you had a cat.
Well, I'm sure the cat is going to join us. In fact, here it is. It just joined our interview.
Yes, because that's also the, because I don't know if you know this, but all of the Zoom sessions that you're having from home, it's 10% looking at you and 90% looking at your space around you from the other people. I catch my, it's good.
Yeah, a lot of people tend to comment when they see that I have the cat in my chat. I forget that people look at other people's feeds when we do Zoom calls.
Yeah. I did it where one of the people that I'm working with now has a Sphinx cat, which is a hairless cat, and that popped in the frame, and I couldn't focus on anything else. It was the only thing I was paying attention to the rest of the meeting.
That would happen, yes.
My story from the other day was I was having to give a presentation, and I have a 16-month-old at home, and my wife is still working in the hospital, so she was unavailable. She was working that day, and so I had to watch him while I was giving a presentation, and I had to hold him as he grabbed clementines off my counter and just shoved them down my shirt while I was trying to talk to, and he was just, and I was like, oh my God. And it was people that I would have preferred to be much more professional to than that, but everyone was very kind and very good. How are you liking working from home? Are you finding it, are you as productive, would you say?
I think I might be more productive, but that's just because it becomes a little tricky to separate your personal life from your professional life. So like it's 6 p.m. now, and I feel like I'm just starting my day.
Yeah.
unfortunately, because now it's getting dark. I can clearly see what's going on the screen. There's no reflections. So I might just keep working until like midnight or something.
Well, we'll just stay
There's
with you
just
then. We'll just keep hanging out with you the whole time.
there's not a lot of there's not much better things to do right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it does kind of help you focus in a little bit because you don't have the distractions of meeting friends for dinner and going to movies and the such.
Yeah, and if you're lucky and you end up doing a job that you really enjoy, then it doesn't really feel like work in the first place.
Yeah.
So I don't mind it.
Yeah, it's great. So for those that are listening in, if you have any questions for Francesco, either if you are on Zoom or if you're on Facebook, just throw them in. If you're on Zoom, just the chat window. And if you're on Facebook, just throw ahead and throw in a comment and I will be monitoring those so we can ask Francesco your guys' questions. So what was the last film that you worked on? What was the most recent one that you've worked
on? They came out, Trolls 2.
Yeah, the Trolls, the World Tour one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Now you've worked on a bunch of you worked on your own films too, right?
Yeah, that was around college, and then for a couple of years after college, before work became really busy.
Yeah. Do you have any inklings? Do you have any like itchings to go back to making your own projects?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think if I were to do that though, I probably would want to take some time off from work because otherwise, there's just no time to do both at a good level, I think.
Do you think that, I guess this is more like an opinion thing. So we're all working remotely now. Do you feel like that's something that's going to continue? Do you feel like that's something that you're going to be comfortable with? Like you would be okay doing that?
I imagine a lot of people will be asking to do this maybe a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
And I might be one of them because it's nice not to have to wake up at 7 a.m. and drive in and drive out. And I think as long as you have established that you have a good working integrity with your employer and they know they can trust you, I don't think it makes a big difference if you're not there a couple of days a week.
I totally agree. And the reason why I asked was I was wondering if the ability for more people to work from home would mean like an opportunity for someone who's making their own film to have more access to more artists who are available, like have the computer equipment and have the accessibility to do work from home. And like that would open up a new pool of artists for you to make a film. I don't know if you've thought about that at all. I
think so. I mean, there's definitely some setup IT wise, because I did some work on collaborative films in the past, and it's very tricky. It's very tricky to find a platform that lets people collaborate. It's very tricky to share files. The way we are able to do that right now is just because we are logging in a machine remotely. So technically, all the files are still in one central location on the server. But trying to work locally on your machine and transfers files so other people can access them, that becomes a lot trickier. I haven't had a chance to work on a short film so far that has had the resources to pull it off. It's pretty much been a pain in the ass where you're working on a file that is saved on your hard drive and then you want to transfer it. It's been the major difficulty to get any collaborative work done, especially if you're working a 3D pipeline where you need, gigs and gigs of files and textures and models all available at any moment. So we have a couple questions. And the first one is quick, but I want to make sure that the question is, what is the render engine and software they use at Dreamworks? Please don't reveal anything you're not allowed to reveal, but. I think they are pretty proud of it. It's called Moonray, and it's a ray tracer, and it was developed maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And back at PDI, where I was 10 years ago, we had our own render engine. And it was really powerful, but really complicated to use. The setups were extremely complicated. So Moonray was a result of trying to deviate from that and giving us something that is extremely fast, doesn't offer as much flexibility, but is a full-on ray tracer, and it gives you a much better picture right off the bat. But we have lost some controls that we had, like some aesthetic controls that we had. So it's a trade-off, but it's a really good renderer. I think out of all the renderers I've worked on so far, it's on par with Pixar's. It's pretty good.
That's great. That's wonderful. What, okay, so Dante asks, do you have any tips for best lighting practices for beginners? The way I always like to phrase this is, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself when you're first starting this thing, like what advice would you give yourself? Or what things do you wish you knew back then?
I think painting.
Mm-hmm.
I think painting is the thing that makes, lighting a technicality. If you can paint it, if someone says, oh, we have this shot, and you look at it and you can take it and go in Photoshop and make it look like you want it to look like, then it's just a matter of achieving that in the software. And I think when I work with other people, that is the number one difficulty that they encounter, that they don't know what it's supposed to look like. And if you don't know what you want it to look like, you can get the most powerful renderer and you just will get stuck.
Mm-hmm. No, that's
keep
great.
Going in circles, So if you can practice painting and get some really good, strong background in that, I think it will definitely make your job easier.
Yeah, that's great. I totally agree with that, because people used to ask, because I came from photography, and they would say, "Oh, it must be easy to make that transition from photography into CG." And I said they couldn't be more different at times, because in photography you have to work with the existing light, and you can add lights here and there, but you're so constrained by the physical world, where 3D rendering is so much more like painting, because you're not, and you can make adjustments however you need, and you can, like, you work with bounce light and stuff, but you paint it in there in a much more artistic way than you ever could with lighting. So I completely agree with that.
I think because we do both the lighting and the compositing,
mm-hmm.
The lighting is a lot more like painting,
mm-hmm.
and the compositing is a lot more like photography, where you only have a limited number of channels with limited amount of data.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only push it and pull it so far before it breaks. So at that point, it becomes more like, you have your pictures, now you're just editing them and grading them.
Mm-hmm.
But the first half, that can be pretty much like painting. You sometimes cheat the light just completely because you want it to look a certain way.
Yeah, no, that's great. I totally agree. So Katerina wants to know, what were some of the challenges that you faced transitioning from college to the studio environment?
The college I went to was pretty much like a studio environment in terms of how tough they were on you. So actually, having a job was easier than college in terms of deadlines and the risk of failing. So I think college prepared us really well because they put us through hell. So
Mm-hmm.
once we got to work, it was like hell light.
Yeah.
Everything felt much easier. Everything has been downhill since graduating.
I completely, yeah. It's because you also start to realize, wait a second, you guys are going to pay me for this? I was doing this anyway, and I was going into debt for it, and now you guys are just going to give me money? Like, all right, I'll do it. I'll keep doing it.
Yeah. Like we were doing all-nighters. We were, every single moment, we were trying to figure out how to save time and get our short film done better, faster. So college was as tough as it could have been. And then work was like doing that only like 8 hours a day. So
yeah,
it was easier.
I also had a realization moment when I first started at Blue Sky, because I had brought some notebooks and pens and everything on my first day. And they're like, oh, if you need a notebook, we have a supply closet. And I was like, like that thought blew my mind, that there was a supply closet of office supplies where I could grab pens and stuff. Like, I don't know why that got me on my first day.
Yeah, yeah. I miss that. I
Yeah.
think they are a little bit more conservative at DreamWorks. So you have to ask someone to go and give you a Sharpie or a notebook, which is a little strange.
There's somebody whose job it is specifically to get pens and notebooks for artists. That's good.
They don't enjoy it, but there's just otherwise everyone would get like 5 or 6, just like toilet paper.
I would never
during
do
the
that.
quarantine.
I would never do such a, yeah, that's a fair argument. I did, yeah, anyway. Okay, so Donica wants to know, how much scripting do you use in your lighting process?
Mm, I don't want to say 0 because that is not true. At Blue Sky, I had to become really good at scripting. That's because at Blue Sky or other studios, some studios, that is how you light.
Mhm.
And if you don't know how to script, you are at a disadvantage. At DreamWorks, I only find myself scripting whenever I want to animate some noises, so not too often, and nothing past like some sign functions and some noise from randoms, nothing with if statements, nothing too complicated. If you want to, you could, but usually the type of person that, usually there are people that are better at it. So all you need to do is be able to explain what you want to achieve, and someone who's better at scripting will help you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree there. Okay, let's see if there's any no other questions at the moment. So let me ask you one. What?
Sure.
Tell me about what's the favorite feature project that you worked on?
I
have
have
one?
very bad memory, so I'll just go with Trolls 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That hurt. I
because
can't believe you didn't say a film that we worked on together. That's gonna
oh
sting
right, Peanuts
you.
movie.
You were physically holding the Peanuts cup. I was gonna say that.
I am.
So what was like some of the challenges on Trolls 2? Like what was something that you encountered that you never encountered before?
It was the first show for me where we used Katana.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a vanilla version of Katana, meaning that we didn't have a lot of time to write our own tools and bells and whistles, so it was pretty rough. And then there were just the number of crowds in the movie were really high.
Mm-hmm.
The complexity was really high. Literally everything in the movie has fuzz and hair. So on top of that, all the depth of field in the movie was 2D, which means that if you have overlapping geos that are very thin and fuzzy, you get all sorts of artifacts. So all of those elements had to be separated out.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of work.
So we have one more question here. What are the steps to becoming a lead lighting artist? Like what are the skills to becoming a lead?
From an artistic standpoint, you have to be able to be really good. So if someone throws something really complicated, you have to be able to take on pretty much any challenge. You have to be able to support artists. If they are very talented, good. If they are struggling, you have to be able to support them. You have to write documentation. Sometimes you might have 3 or 4 people on the team and you just don't have time to talk to them individually. So you have to write documentation for all of them to be on the same page. And what else? I think that's about it.
Do you have any recommendations for like leading a team? Is there anything that you found about, like how do you approach leading a group of people? Or do you think about it, or do you just do it?
You know, I've only been a lead for a couple of years. So I haven't had huge teams so far. So far, it's only been 3 or 4 people. And there have always been really nice and patient and talented. And I feel like I have to do very little. You know, I set up the rigs, I give them an overview of what they look like. I ask questions, like they ask me questions and I answer them. It's not crazy.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that leads also do that no one really pays attention to is making sure that the technology develops, making sure that the tools and the pipeline uh, continue to get better over time. Because usually the leads are the people that have been at the studio long enough to understand how the pipeline works, and they're the only one that know how to suggest changes because they understand how the pipeline works. And that's usually something that is not uh, appreciated, or just it doesn't fall within the regular description of the job, but it's a lot of what we do.
That's great. Another question. Could you describe in brief your normal day or week, and like how do you achieve shot lighting quotas and the process that goes along with it?
Well, ideally you'll be working on one sequence, and so you would just go in and you have a certain amount of time to do the setup, and then you have a certain amount of time to do shot lighting. Setup usually you do by yourself, and then shot lighting is when the lighters join you, and so you work with them, and usually you will do one sequence at a time. But in reality, what happens is that you're working on 2 or 3 sequences at the same time. So sometimes you might be setting up one sequence, but finish setting up a sequence and supporting other lighters. And you might also be finishing up another sequence. So it's a lot of juggling different timelines. So like today I spent some time reviewing shots that are almost done and giving notes, doing paint overs for shots that are almost there. And then I spent some time developing the look for a sequence that just started, doing some rounds with look development, material artists, and sending very low quality frames for the sequence just to see what it looks like. And I'm also in the middle of a different sequence where I'm finding shots that are struggling and trying to push them up so that when I move on, the sequence will be in a good spot for other people. So yeah, it can be all over the place. Every day can be very different.
That's great. And yeah, you always have to caveat that of like, you know, ideally you'd work on one sequence, but looking back on it, you so rarely get that opportunity to only work on one at a time because it's usually, yeah, you've got things kind of coming from both directions. Okay. Yeah. So Donica wants to know, well, the question is, what did you add into your demo reel when you started applying for jobs after college? And I'm going to add the question on top of that. As somebody who probably reviews demo reels now, what are things that you look for? Like, what would you recommend someone have in their demo reel now, applying for a job in 2020?
Usually the thing that a lot of people don't have in their demo reel is good character lighting. And we see a lot of pictures of interiors, furniture, architecture, but 99% of the time when you start at an animation company, the shots that are going to be thrown at you are going to be character shots. It's very rare that you're going to be asked to light a scenario by yourself. So I would say focus on your character shots and, move on from simple Lambert, simple materials, tackle hair, tackle refractions, tackle reflections, do subsurface scattering, do fuzz on the skin, do all sorts of stuff that will get your work to stand out. But above all, good character lighting, because that's what will get your foot in the door.
Yeah, because we all work for studios that create character-driven projects. All of our films are focused on the character and their story arcs, and unless you can get them looking good, no one cares what the room around them will look like if they themselves don't look good.
Yeah,
that's great. Okay, so let's see. No other live questions. I will throw out another one for you as well. So we get the question all the time. Well, let me just ask you this, Clean. Having never asked you this before, I don't think. When you review a demo reel, do you care what software that they use in order to create their work?
No.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, no. Because, I mean, we did Trolls 2 in Katana. and we're doing Crudes 2 in Houdini. And every studio you go, they will use different tools. That concern of learning a tool stops. It doesn't matter anymore, really. Once you get into the industry, no one cares. They assume that you will be able to learn, or they will provide you with classes. All that matters is your eye and your ability to get some good shots done in any software.
And I swear to God, we didn't rehearse that, even though it's pretty much the identical answer I give you guys all the time. So
yeah,
I mean, just to reiterate that that's the truth.
It is frustrating, like on Trolls 2. It is frustrating when you're asking to be a lead in a software that you've never used before. And ironically, you'll be working with people that might have used that tool before and are not leads. But, part of being a lead is also you have to be able to tell people when you don't know something. You have to always be able to learn. And, ultimately, I learned a lot from anyone that I was working with. And all that matters is getting the shots done. Like on some of the sequences on Trolls 2, I was working with a lighter, Shane, that was part of TDU at some point. And I think it was his second feature or first feature, and he was incredible. It was amazing working with him. I would do paint overs. We would spend time going back and forth. Sometimes depending on, it doesn't really matter how much experience someone has. Sometimes they can just be really good. The title really is only on paper. Sometimes people are much better than their title.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And just for self-promotion, that's Shane Sternstein. He teaches our Redshift course here at the Academy of Animated Art. And he's a lovely human being. So there's a follow-up to the question about the demo reel. And the question was just, is your advice about character lighting the same as somebody switching from lighting for television to light and trying to get into lighting for film?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the only difference between TV and film usually is the time that you're given to finish a shot, and therefore the quality, because time is quality. But ultimately, people react to the characters. The sets, I feel like, are complicated and a thing in themselves, but characters is how you get in. Very rarely someone gets hired because of the amazing lighting of an interior shot.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I would always say, and like good eye lighting is always good. That's something that always gets missed in characters. But yeah, so unless there are any other questions, I'm going to let Francesco go about his day so he can go back to his garden and his cat, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
I don't want to take up too much of your time.
I have nothing else to do.
All right, well then I'll keep bugging you for a little bit now. Well, yeah, let me ask you something else about it. So I'm just trying to think of where I was coming out of things. So as a lighting artist, how much, because this is something that I was talking with someone the other day. When you're lighting a shot, do you light it with the idea of trying to do as much in render as you can and then clean up anything in the comp? Or do you light it, or do you light knowing that compositing is an equal part of the process? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you trying to push it as far along as you can? Or are you getting it to a certain point saying, I can do the rest in comp?
It really changes. Yeah. Also, it depends on your render engine. If you have, rods or any sort of tool that lets you control the shaping of the light, the fall off, if you can darken areas of the image in render, doing all of those things in render, amazing. I would do it. Some render engines just don't offer that. So you have to be planning ahead of time. How are you going to be able to do that? And because most of the work I do is meant to light as much as possible, as fast as possible, if I can, I'll of course try to do it in render, because whatever I do will pay off for the whole sequence. It becomes trickier to do big gradients in comp, because you get artifacts really easily if you don't have good information in comp. But for some sequences, you can only push the image so far. So I always apologize to some of my lighters if they start on a sequence where there is a ton of comp work involved. Like some of the nuke scripts that I've been handing off, they look like miniature cities. They're just so long, and you just can't help it. You push it as far as you can in the software, but ultimately, that to get the look they're looking for, you have to do a lot of treatment, and there's just no way around it.
And I think from my standpoint, it seems like and just knowing the projects that I've been working on and ones that I've been seeing, the industry is going more and more abstract with the look of things, getting more away from photorealism in some of the animated films. And as you get further away from photorealism, you tended to rely more on compositing and other techniques to achieve a look, because renderers are meant to simulate natural reactions of light. And as soon as you start to get away from that, at least from my standpoint, a lot more work is being done in the comp than in the renderer itself. So I was just curious as if your approach has changed at all.
It really depends on the render engine that you work with, really. Moonray, the one that we use at Dreamworks, we are able to output AUVs for every light. So there is no reason whatsoever why you would want to achieve some things in render when you can more easily achieve them in Nuke. If you want a gradient, it's just more easier to do it in Nuke. Yeah. Some renderers don't allow you to do that. So in that case, you have no choice.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the render engine you use. Sometimes if you can use 3D depth of field, that can really simplify your comp scripts. But then you're limited in the data that you have to work with. If you render everything in one layer, you will have less depth of field artifacts. But if you're trying to do gradients in 3D space, you'll have different artifacts. So it's always a trade-off between the tools that you're using and what you're trying to achieve.
That's great. Okay, now I actually am genuinely going to let you go. Oh wait, there's one more question. Sure. What do you think about USD, and how much does it change a lighter's workflow? Are you guys working? Do you do it? Have you done any USD work?
Yeah, our pipeline is USD now. Well, to really take advantage of USD, you need a USD delegate. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And some renderers do that, allow you to do that. Other renderers don't. It's a little tricky to export stuff like light linking, shadow linking. So it's limited for lighting, what we can actually export for people to use. We're definitely moving in the direction. We're definitely exploring Solaris and other USD editors that will take advantage of USD. I think that's essentially, where everyone is moving. Disney is moving there. We are moving there. Blue Sky is moving there. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, totally. Because I mean, we'll all get there, and all of the softwares are going to have to create a delegate at some point, because it's just the way that we're all going to end up working. Because it does have it does have unique advantages, and it definitely speeds up your workflow. I know. Francesco, you know about this at Blue Sky. When there was an animation change that needed to be done when you were lighting a shot, you would have to send it back to animation. They would have to update a Maya file. It would have to get processed out. It was like this whole process that could take a day to 2 days to a week before you saw your actual animation updates, versus a USD file that happens like that. That certainly changes things. It saves you a week right there sometimes. So that it's going to be a little bit of a game changer once we get everything sorted out with it. But yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, it really isn't our responsibility. Like, I tend to care more about the tools just to improve the image.
Yeah.
USD is more of a pipeline thing that I'm glad it's happening, but I don't really concern myself too much with it.
I like it because it allows me to work more collaboratively directly with the artists. Because anytime that you have to like switch softwares, it tends to take more time, and then producers tend to get involved, the more time it takes. And with USD, I find that I can just directly contact the artist and say, hey, like, or I just overwrite something they did, like, hey, I'm just going to nudge this over. I just want to make sure you're cool with that. And then it creates a more direct relationship. And then they also are seeing then if they see what you're doing on that one shot, then they can make adjustments to future shots. I find that USD means a more collaborative workflow with the other artists, but that's just been my experience. So,
yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to let you go. And Francesco, I've been ending these the same way because I have yet to figure out how to end the meeting for everybody and leave you on to say a proper goodbye to you. So I'm just going to say the proper goodbye to you. I miss you, buddy. You're one of my favorite people to work with. I hope you're staying safe during this time. I hope you just keep gardening and your cat's good and you guys can just keep rocking along because you seem I miss working with you on your inflatable ball because you just always look like you're bouncing and you're happy and you're just bobbing along throughout the day. And I hope very much someday to get you to teach a class with us once things kind of settle down for you. Because I think every time I talk to you, I just find myself nodding along because I feel like we have the same philosophies towards this stuff. And I wish you nothing but the best, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.